The first law of thermodynamics, also known as law of conservation of energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Energy can only be transferred or changed from one form to another. Everybody, how's everyone doing? Sorry, my hair is a mess. Everything's weird, frizzy. I think it's the humidity or something. I'm gonna talk about my previous topic. I just live streamed, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, and it was called "Curved Shadows on the Moon is a Proof of the Shape of the Earth." YouTube went ahead and interrupted the live stream. So if you're gonna watch it and you're gonna watch the full thing, I would recommend going again. You could go to my details page, and hopefully it's up, but who knows. If you go to this, if you go to the description box in YouTube, you're gonna see links to my Steemit or Vimm.tv or my DLive.tv. You can watch the full video there. It's an hour and a half, but really all you really need to do is watch 43 minutes of it. Anyways, that's YouTube for you. And again, in the future, it's going to be worse. So start migrating everyone who actually does content creation on YouTube. Start making some other platform bigger. Put your energies into other platforms. I'm talking about energy. Well, I think 2 days ago I did my live stream on the Tao, and I recently watched something because I was wondering what the Tao's take on gods and deities was, and so I came across this fella. He's got 58 minutes and 18 seconds of stuff. His name is Tin Yat Dragon Taoism. I just wanted to hear what he had to say, and of course I'm going to look at multiple sources. He's got the whole interesting that he uses the I forgot what you call that, the ram and the horns or something. Gosh, my esoteric occult stuff is just kind of being left to the background these days. It's I haven't been focusing too much on it, but this is going to tie into a lot of cool stuff. Now, the idea of deities and immortals and stuff, and I just do a search. Are there gods in Taoism? Well, everyone gives their own little take on it. And so, of course, if you're going to do a Google search, Tao gods, it says, are there gods in Taoism for bbc.co.uk, your mainstream corporate media. Taoism does not have a god in the way that the Abrahamic religions do. There is no omnipotent being beyond the cosmos who created and controls the universe. In Taoism, the universe springs from the Tao, and the Tao impersonally guides things on their way. Not quite accurate, but again, we'll go over more stuff. Tao gods, you can see just a lot of depictions, and well, to give you a skinny of what this fella says, right, there's hold on, I have issues with something here. What is going on over here? Okay, my plug was just off. All right, good. Maybe if someone comes in, I can also no. Oh no, sorry about that. My audio was not working. All right, so what this fella says is that there's two forms of, I guess you could call it. Don't think of it as the typical god and deities and things like that. Just think of it as forms of nature and energy, and having it's not really there's no you can think of it as an incarnation, but that's not accurate. It's think of it as a I don't know how to best explain it. Like when we think of things, we have to think of something that's physical. Now, there are no physical manifestations of these gods and deities. Okay, so it's more like, think of it as what we see on this plane is a material world. We understand that there's energy, but again, energy is always a transfer of things, just like matter and energy can't really create or destroy. It just becomes transferred. We see this in the scientific method, how everything's brought out in the current way of things. Now, think of the opposite of that. It would be rather than having matter where we're formed and we have to think of things in terms of physicality to it, but we have things that we know that don't have physical manifestations, like our thoughts, our dreams, and just think of it as the digital realm. When we're looking at video games, it doesn't exist physically, but it's there in some form of non-physical non-form, if you can catch my drift. So when now, not that these energies don't have thoughts or dreams or anything like that, it's the same thing is there. They can have their, it's almost like the reverse of us. Rather than being made out of matter, where we can have metaphysical interactions, experiences. Think of energies of being able to have I don't know what you call it, non-metaphysical. It's more of it's a transfer. It's something that we can't experience because we're not able to understand it. So that's kind of how Tao works. Yeah, just think of it as kind of opposites, but there's a relationship between everything. There's always a give and take. That's just kind of the way that I would describe it. Is when we breathe in, we also have to breathe out. You know, when we blink, we don't blink. Our eyes open, our eyes closed. There's always a opposite function that occurs. Just like when we take something in, when we drink water, and it comes out. It's not the same thing that comes out. It transferred, and everything that goes through a specific pathway, you could say, because Tao is the way. It's a path. It's a destination. It's going towards something, and becomes something different. And during that, it's the process of becoming something different, where the destination becomes a certain manifestation than if you didn't go a certain way. For example, you can't get to a destination unless you take paths to it. If you take the wrong path, you're never going to reach that destination. But then again, there's multiple paths to reach the destination, and of those paths will determine what you can experience and learn and bring forth with you to that destination, where it can help you, or it can make that end destination point a specific experience, where if you didn't have that path towards that destination, you would be without it. It's very difficult to explain, but it's also very simple, and I may not be doing a good job. It's kind of my first endeavor into it. Now, what's interesting here is that these I don't know. I guess you would, whatever gods or deities, whatever it is, these non-ethereal, energetic forms, they can send signs over to it. There's like a consciousness towards these energy manifestations, and we can notice them. And most of the time, when these energies, forms, natures, whatever it is, I hate putting it's. You can't really put a name to it. That's why it's hard for me. And because we can't put a name to it, the thing is, we can still, whatever it is, it chooses individuals, and it has to choose an individual. And once the individual takes upon themselves to accept it, well, we carry it on. We pretty much do the bidding, not because we're forced to, because we choose to. And when we choose to, we're granted with it's more of like thoughts. And we choose to see the signs, you could say. Think about it as just the observation of nature. It's teaching. Nature teaches us in non-direct ways. It doesn't have to communicate with us. We can see a bird flying and saying, oh, animals can fly. Can we fly? And then we go about, well, we don't have wings, so do we make wings? And we flap our arms like this and go on. No, that doesn't seem right. So we keep having these thoughts, and it's from these energy. I'm not okay. This whole thing, it's not known. I'm not saying it's known to be true. It's not it's not the truth or whatever it is. I don't have to be a representative of truth doesn't need any representation from anyone or anything, just like gods and deities or energy manifestations. But this is just something that I'm thinking about, and I also want to kind of tell it as a form of a story. So don't take it as truth, fact, or whatever. Just take it as information. Do with it with whatever you want, whether you want to disregard it or you want to keep it and look into it more. I think it's interesting, because one of the things that I find is when I look at the deities that they have a Queen Mother of the West. And think about when you look into things with the Earth, it's always called Mother Earth. They never call it Father Earth. There's always a not gender, more of a feminine, masculine quality to certain gods and deities or manifestations, representations of things like that. And I find it pretty interesting because, of course, my diving into ayahuasca and Mother and the Nag Hammadi and Sophia and all this other stuff, it's like kind of have a similar thing with ancient China and Taoism and even Korea. And if you listen to the hero's journey with King Mu, it's pretty cool because he seeks immortality. There's a thing with Taoism and their mythology is there's a Mount Kunlun where nearby was the orchard of the peaches of immortality. So again, a mountain where the queen resides, Queen Mother, not like a queen mother, but a queen separate and a mother separate. It's very similar to thinking about it as the center of the Earth, North Pole, magnetic North Pole. There resides a mountain or a big tall tower, and within there resides whatever it is that you can will find there. But a thought of it is that there's the mother, or Sophia, or maybe heck even the Queen Mother for Taoist approach. And there's always talk of immortality that can be found in either story, which is it's just so interesting that you can find these parallels within all the mythologies and stories out there. So that's why I like focusing on stories. Hi Ben. Yeah, mirrors, reflections. But so a couple of things that got me about this is, say you're chosen, whatever it is that's choosing you, to you're given the wisdom if you choose to accept and understand it, and it's almost a because you choose to allow this manifestation to teach you and you're learning from it, it's going to provide you with certain things, not just the wisdom, but of whatever it is that it has power to transfer to you. But then there's also the opposite. You can keep asking or praying or whatever it is to these energies, manifestations, gods, deities, whatever it is, and it's kind of it's weird. It's like a credit system. You're buying. You're like, hey, you really want something. So what it is some energy, form, entity, whatever, will provide that to you, but then you're gonna have to return it in some way or another, and it could be positive, it can be negative, depends on the non-form, whatever. And that can be weird, I guess, but it kind of fits into certain models of the magic, paganism. But paganism, I think, is has also been twisted, just like everything so far that we know of has been inverted and perverted in some way. My thoughts, not my beliefs, my thoughts, as far as a cool story, as far as researching into ancient mythologies, ancient history, and things like that, is you've got, on one path, those who say there's one constant, ethereal, super God, highest of the high, most high, Jesus, and whatever, and that you can never become that. You're just a man. You're gonna be judged afterwards. It's basically like the Abrahamic religion in some way, and you're either chosen or you're saved or etc. Things they tell you can never become. Okay, and there's another side where, well, they want to become God, not a part of God, not a part of that spark that's within us, that God, the Most High, the Creator, whoever it was that provided us, whether it's Jesus Christ or anything else. There's that God spark with us because we were created in the image, or whatever it is. We've been given that. We've been provided that. Yet there are those, and most people, the thing is, they are at odds with each other. You've got one side and the other. You got this duality, but they're both right and they're both wrong. Because of this spark, whatever story that you read about in biblical or in mythology, there is that spark. There's this soul, divine spirit, whatever you want to call it. And to think that we're not able to harness it and be a part of God, a mini God, whatever, because the higher being, that whatever it is, we understand that it can create, that it created the universe, created humans, animals, it can create. And to think that it can't create anything else that it can do, just like I talked about in a previous video, it's like, when we think about it just as just questions, like, can this Most High being that created everything, or existed before everything was created, can it create something that's more powerful than itself? Well, is that possible? Will it allow that? Would it do that? Would it be smart enough or to think that would be a good idea or a bad idea? Possibilities are endless, right? This is supposed to be the most powerful concept that we can imagine. So yes, it should be possible in that case. There are problems associated with that, because then it creates something that's more powerful than itself. Who's to say it can destroy the previous thing that created it? And but then again, maybe it would be able to create something that can create things but cannot destroy the creation, the ones that created it, etc. Maybe there's all these different things. You gotta just put that into account. So if you're religious, probably don't want to listen to me. You probably won't. That's fine. But think of it that way as, well, you've got two extremes. You've got one who just believes that we are special in some tiny way, but we can't ever attain some mode of specialness, even though we're supposedly have this soul that was given to us by God and we're saved and all this other stuff. You got the opposing side saying, we don't even want any of that. We want to become our own gods. We want to be more powerful than the God that is worshipped by the other side or any other side. We want to be the one that's worshipped, and etc., etc. Whether that's going to happen or not, that's what they want. But then there's the other side. There's it's not even a side. It's just the understanding of, if there is something within us that was given to us by a higher being, then we can use it, and it is allowed to be used. And as long as we are connected to it and part of it, we can become what the very similar, if not beyond, that of which created us. Think of it as the family dynamic, and the family dynamic exists because we have to exist within it. We can't exist without it. So every son, every daughter, every infant grows up, eventually has to become a man or a woman, and it doesn't end there. I mean, we always wait as parents for our sons and daughters to grow up to become men and women who can take care of themselves, who can survive off of what nature provides, and continue the cycle and grow and be able to create and do more things within this realm that we have. Now, who's to say that whatever created us, divine being, entity, etc., is waiting for us to grow, to understand, to once we got past of being a man and woman, that we're on that way to become what that creator that created us wants us to be. Obviously, it doesn't want, like, for example, as parents, I don't want my kids to remain kids forever. I want them to grow to be able to support themselves, to experience life on their own, and I have to be beyond worry, and they're just, they become what I hope they become, and something better than me even, right? I feel that that's what the creator, if there is one, would want for us, is for us to grow to become something that's better than themselves. So it's just a continual movement of something better, and hopefully not worse. Well, sometimes something may happen along the way. Now, what's also good about this person who talks is, suppose an entity, being, non-being, chooses you to accept this wisdom. You become the representative, I guess, which I don't like to use, but you're actually representing them and what they want you to hopefully do in order to get to a certain point that they want humans to get to. But so therefore, a lot so all these forms. So again, there's this. He calls it the sun. So there's beings that were before the universe and humans came to be. Now there can still be entities that humans can become, manifestations, representations. And so what he says is that these immortals and things like that that become these gods in the Taoist way, not the traditional, or I wouldn't say traditional, the Abrahamic way, is that you're like the root of a tree, okay? And all the statues that are made isn't that of the entity or the incarnation, because no one knows what, even the representative doesn't know what that looks like, because it's not formed into a shape or a human representation, whatever, that we always as humans want to put into a nice little package in a box and a design and things like that. So what happens is that statue is that the person who was chosen that becomes the representative, and that knowledge is passed on to everyone, and everyone understands it. They go, hey, this is the manifestation of this, and therefore this is the name of it would then be the person who was passing all that information, knowledge around. So if I was somehow chosen as from, say, the nature of some water, like the oceans and stuff like that, so I would be the representative, the root thing of sharing the wisdom of the water bodies. So they would call it Ebon, right? And that would be, and they'd make a statue of me. But the thing is that it's I'm more of like, I'm channeling between that energy and to the material and everyone else that's within this realm. So they're not necessarily I'm not necessarily the immortal or the god or anything like that. I'm just a channel in between. Okay, but there's also just weird things that I can't explain. So you should watch this and listen to this person. Now, what's interesting when he uses the analogy of the roots, because if the root is bad, everything else after it is gonna be bad. The bark, the entire tree, the leaves, the branches could be poisoned. If the roots are poisoned, everything else could be bad. So one thing that he says is, look at the leaders of your representative of a god or a deity or religion. And when you and when you really closely look, when they have so much material wealth and they don't do anything with it to seemingly help those who are downtrodden and get up and share that wealth with everyone else, and you hear stories, either rumors or being true, and sometimes most of the times they are true, where there's like sexual misbehaviors and all of that stuff. Well, if the representative, the one who's the channeling, and the direct representative of that deity, that god, that energy being, whatever it is, if that person is bad, evil, what do you think that if you're following that religion, that doctrine, that dogma, how it's not going to be good? It's going to be poisoned as well. You're being poisoned. It's negative energy. It's evil. Whatever it is, it's bad. So I thought that was kind of good analogy, and something that you might want to think about. If you are believing in something, are you believing the right thing, and who's the one that's channeling that? The other thing that I want to get to before I get to some of the other things, which I do want to get into, is the symbolism of the yin yang, which is associated a lot with Taoism. And here's one that's pretty interesting. You've got the unmanifested, the wu qi, which is nothingness, and the manifest, which is tai chi, the everything, the yin and yang, the matter, maternal, earthly time, pattern, paternal, heavenly, space. You know, it's that type of thing. You've got, of course, the opposites, the heaven, the earth, masculine, feminine, rational, emotional, hardness, softness, lightness, heaviness, sun, moon, fire, water, positive, negative, etc. Now, imagine as a story, not as like a real thing, or just use your imaginations. Think of if everything is as the Tao describes as being energy and matter and opposites, and you've got these deities who become manifested through humans because of humans want something from the energy side to transfer to the material, but eventually that needs to be transferred back because there's a give and take. Now imagine that there is one manifestation, a god, that is siphoning off of all the energies that you give to it by praying to it, by worshiping it, and all of that you're giving to it, and just based off of stories, based off of belief. And so it's receiving a lot of energy from the material world. Just say this one entity, and everything's just siphoning off. It's just going in one direction because it's not giving back. It may give back in some forms, but it's going to take more back. It's like interest. Okay. And you have all these other energy entities, other gods, other material, immaterial energy beings, non-beings, nature forces, whatever it is that you want to call them. Well, it has to do something because there's just one energy that's siphoning off energy, more energy than all the others. So all the other energy forces are going to try to find someone within the earth to take some of that energy and create more of an equilibrium. Okay? So it has to find someone, or I'm sorry to say it, this thing, being, energy, non-being. I have to figure out a word to describe it. This entity needs someone to represent it and gain from its wisdom, and to hopefully stop this one massive form that's keeps now. We've got a system on Earth right now that's negative. There's corruption, there's greed, there's just violence, and a lot of just slavery, if not physical, at least mental. People are giving away their freedom for protection they don't really get, and giving into just so much things that they just accept. They don't think about it, because if they thought about it, they wouldn't accept it, and they'd be in certain positions like me, you, a couple of people. And you can, many people who are still watching me talk about this understand that is going on. Now, if it's a transfer of energy, and the reason we can't stop it is because, well, we're dealing with forces that are beyond our control. But in order to stop it, we are able to, because there's a lot of forces in play here besides that one massive siphoning, I guess you could say, beast or god or whatever it is. And if people really looked into it, they would stop giving it their energy. Just like when you give your freedoms away for security, which you won't really have. So it's kind of like you're being played. You're being promised one thing and not getting. Just like I'm talking about that side where they're trying to become gods or the god or just trying to take over the god, that the most high, whatever, being separate from it. They're just giving up their divine spark to try and become their own god, and probably by worshiping and dealing in exchanges with this massive negative force that keeps siphoning off people's energies. And people are tricked by it, and they keep giving into it, whether you want to call it manifestation of the devil or Satan or Lucifer or whatever. That's what people just seem to want. They've got everything materially, and they want a lot of things materially and have it expand to the after. And no one could take any of their material possessions here to the after. And so far as we know, there is no immortal being, at least that we've found yet. So all of that are lies, right? Yet people keep falling for it. They keep giving this their energy. Off of lies, off of promises, off of falsehoods. People keep falling for it, and more energy keeps going to this. Well, on the other side of it, they are fed lies too, but they're not looking to be a god or gods. They accept that they're just into this little paradigm that was built for them, and what it is, well, they're not forced to, but if they don't believe or worship or adhere to a special dogma, then they're going to be cast out of the societal norm that they grew up with, and that everyone will accept you if you're part of that paradigm. And you're also giving your energies to the negativity that's out there, and basically that's what the system that we have. Yet between that, there needs to be a balance, because right now it's unbalanced. There's so much imbalance, and you can witness it. Just nature itself. There's just a lot of imbalance going on Earth. Now, the forces of Earth, Mother, in short, another being, energy force, whatever you want to call it, it has to do something to balance this imbalance. And therefore, it's going to have to find worthy people. Hopefully it doesn't pick the wrong people, but also just like as Jesus said, he who has ears shall hear, type of thing. I'm bad on scripture, I'm sorry. You're going to see the signs, you're going to be given the wisdom, you can have opportunities to communicate. It's not going to be the way that we communicate with other humans. It's going to be like how a dog can communicate with us and listen to us, understand what we're saying, even though the dog can't really speak back where we can understand what the dog's saying, right? It's just a different level, different just experience. We're talking about energies that have been around for way longer than any material entity can be around. And so, but the thing is, we're still part of that, even though we're within this material system. And so we can understand things even though we can't communicate back where they might understand, but we can understand. And so it's just it's just weird. Just think of everything as, I hate to say it, because a lot of people are going to just not like the idea of the macrocosm, the as above so below, and on earth as it is in heaven, all that stuff. It's the same concept with yin yang and the duality, and that is, I'm sorry to say, it is a vital part of how nature plays out. Not just nature as in the material nature, but of energy nature. And that doesn't make it evil or good, it just makes it as is. And we see this pattern throughout, pattern in math and formulas and geometry and all of that. That's in nature. We see it in nature, in animals, in the animal kingdom, plant kingdom, all of it. We see all of that. We notice it. We've experienced it. And the thing is, there are, as much as there are some that tell the truth and can show people the way to get to that truth and know it and learn it themselves, there are those who will lie, who will say that they know and tell you what it is. The thing is, it's not to be told, right? It's to be experienced. And to know it, you have to experience it. I'm not saying it's a physical experience that everyone has to go through. It's a metaphysical experience, a consciousness experience. It's an experience beyond yourself, beyond your material self. It's something higher than you can imagine. It's not something you can imagine on its own. You have to observe it, and that's how you can experience it. And when you experience it, it's not a physical observation. It's a mental observation. It's so weird. But it's one that's there if you're paying attention. I think there are some of you out there that have it's there. It's always there. It's if you're willing to empty your cup, to experience something that's not expected of you to experience, you're going to see the signs. And those signs will lead you to communicating or being communicated to of things that you should look into, that you should question, that you should sometimes even do. And you'll notice that you don't have to relinquish control. You can have your own control, and you're protected most of the time if you find the right energy. The thing is, you don't give yourself wholly. You give what you allow. It's almost like hypnotism. You can't be hypnotized unless you allow the person to hypnotize you. You can get out of that hypnosis by saying you don't want to be hypnotized, or you don't want to do a suggestion that the hypnotist tells you that you need to be in. So it's much like that. It's again, it's a give and take, just like everything that we experience here on Earth. Everything has to give. Something has to give. Okay, you heard that line, and you're gonna so many of these sayings that occur. There's the exoteric and the esoteric version of it. Like when I was talking to Antarctic Expedition, and I was saying, you may not want to go to Antarctic if the flat Earth if it is flat Earth, and south is just basically the Antarctic ice wall circle, because the saying that's pretty much in bad connotations. When bad things start happening, we say things go south. Why is that, right? I mean, south is just one direction in the globe model, but why is going to South Pole south bad? But if you think of it in the flat model, well, the Antarctic, the sun doesn't reach there, supposedly 24 hours of darkness, super cold. Obviously, animals don't migrate there like they do the North Pole and the Arctic region. So things go south. It's weird that these signs, I mean, even think of it as the M. Night Shyamalan movie signs and Mel Gibson. You've got the signs. There's two interpretations of it, whether it's coincidence or it's something else, something more than we can determine. I mean, the most we can say is I don't know, but let's look into it. Okay. And some cool stories here, and here's the picture of Queen Mother West, and The Queen Mother of the West is believed to be the highest goddess in Taoism. This is in china.org.cn. There's more stuff you can look at as far as the Taoist deities, but you know, I don't really want to go into it. I want you to go ahead and look into it if you're looking for it. The Hero's Journey. I found the Hero's Journey rpg.blogspot.com. The Queen Mother of the West, Thursday, January 15, 2015. I think this is a cool story. And now I guess it's a little long, but I'll read it to you. You can read it yourself, but it's interesting what this person wrote. Okay, Queen Mother of the West. Yesterday was a long and grueling day of edits, so here's a Wednesday goddess post on a Thursday. Better late than never. A question came in asking for today's topic. Oh, great guru of mythology, enlighten us about the wonders of Ji Wang Mu, please. You got it, friend. Ji Wang Mu, or Ji Wang Mu, Ji Wang Mu, Si Wang Mu, and other romanizations of her name, is the Queen Mother of the West, the keeper of the Tao, the goddess of righteousness, and the giver of prosperity. Although she is an extremely important goddess in modern Taoism, as the guardian of the Tao itself, she is also ancient. She predates any of the formally organized Chinese religions, and descriptions of ancient artifacts suggest that she may have been worshipped as far back as 4,000 years ago. As an ancient goddess, and I'll go ahead and zoom it a lot bigger. Sorry. As an ancient goddess, it's hard to tell exactly what Ji Wang Mu represented or did, since we have very few records of that time period, but we do know that she was incredibly important. Inscriptions refer to her as the Mother of the West or the Guardian of the West, sometimes in contrast to Guardian of the East, the identity of whom has been lost to time, implying that she is the gatekeeper or overseer of half the world. The Shanhai Jing, which is both an ancient geography text and one of the oldest textual sources of Chinese mythology, says that she could cause plagues and blight crops if angered, which might explain why her sacrifices were of such high quality that we're still able to find and puzzle over them millennia later. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. This is that kind of ring. She had various sacrifices offered in her name, most likely in a request for protection, and she was considered fearsome and even terrible, depicted with tiger fangs, a panther's tail, and sometimes even fur or claws. Later, after she was adopted into the Taoist pantheon, which wanted to civilize her for its own purposes, she became more commonly depicted as a graceful lady sans teeth, but even then she sometimes appears accompanied by tigers or panthers, reminding those who see her of her ferocious origins. Maybe that's where we get cat fights, when women fight each other. Interestingly enough, the language used to describe Ji Wang Mu by the Shanhai Jing is gender neutral, so it's difficult to tell what gender, if any, her older incarnation might have been presumed to be. Kind of goes with the Jesus Christ Sophia thing. The term Wang Mu specifically means one's paternal grandmother, with a secondary meaning suggesting that she is deceased. So this is why we generally presume that she was always female, but the fact that this very old text doesn't clearly say one way or another is some food for thought. Kind of goes in conjunction with the Holy Spirit. Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Why don't they just say mother? And I think that's, anyways. Ji Wang Mu's role as the Mother of the West, a term that means both Queen and Mother of the West, not Queen Mother, in the sense that we sometimes use it in the West to refer to the mother of a king. In Taoism, usually involves her ownership or understanding of Tao and the scriptures explaining it. In various myths, it is Ji Wang Mu who created or discovered the Tao Te Ching, and who passed it down to those precious few members of humanity who are deemed worthy to understand and perpetuate it, like that was said earlier. Okay, so Laozi, the mortal philosopher who wrote the Tao Te Ching, is often said to have received it from Ji Wang Mu herself, who allowed him to visit her so she could explain it in person, and then sent him off to bring it to humanity. Later, myths that seek to elevate Laozi as the author of the TTC sometimes reverse this story and claim that he went to her home to share it with her, but in either case, she is certainly central to the entire idea. In fact, she is so central that she becomes a gatekeeper of that enlightened knowledge, deciding whether or not to bestow it on various famous mortal heroes who try and usually fail to meet her standards for righteousness, intelligence, and general not being jerkness. Which is interesting. Sophia and people who are one-sided in their religious doctrine or dogma don't realize that Sophia is just the Greek translation for knowledge. I'm sorry, wisdom. Wisdom, not knowledge. Wisdom. And it's the same concept here in ancient Chinese mythology. Isn't that quaint? Isn't that coincidental? Isn't that odd? Isn't that cool? For example, the story of her doomed romance with King Mu of the Zhou dynasty, a mortal king desperately seeking enlightenment, has remained perennially popular. He was a powerful warrior king who conquered most of his neighbors, drove away the attempted invasions of the Huns, marched into and captured even his allies' kingdom when they insulted or snubbed him, and basically ruled most of the known world with a fairly competent fist. He eventually decided to turn his eyes toward the mysterious West, and while traveling, happened to pass through Jiwingmu's kingdom, where she welcomed him and gave him a banquet. He was immediately smitten with her, and she with him, both impressed by the other's obvious awesomeness at ruling everything and everyone, because he knew that she could bestow upon him boundless wisdom. Again, doesn't that sound a lot like Sophia? Wisdom? Mother Earth? As well as immortality, he wooed her with great fervor and gave her various important national treasures of his kingdom that he really probably shouldn't have given away, but when messengers arrived to tell him that one of the kingdoms he conquered was rebelling, he left immediately to go put down the unrest. Jiwingmu warned him that if he left now, he would never achieve immortality, but his love of his own power proved too strong, and he left to go die old and unhappy as a ruler while she remained in her paradise. And where do we think Sophia is in paradise lost? Where's that? Mount Meru, Yggdrasil, magnetic North Pole. Just hey, coincidences, signs. Maybe you don't see it, and that's fine if you don't see it. I see it, someone else may see it, and that's what matters, right? Maybe you see it and we figure it out and we go there and we don't see it. Well, now we know we didn't see it. But of course, again, if you don't go check it out, you're never gonna see it or know to see it, see that you can't see it. So if you're first, here's the difference between a I don't know how to call it. Someone, a skeptic or I don't know. Man, words are confusing me right now. But think about it as someone who believes in something. They'll be given the information and they'll say, okay, I believe you. They won't go checking up on it because they already believe that it is what this person said. On the other hand, someone who doesn't believe, that's me, is told something and be like, well, I don't really trust you, or maybe I do trust you, but I don't believe you, or I would never know. So maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you know what? I won't know unless I go checking out for myself. Which one is going to be most likely to find out the truth? Person who believes the other person, so they don't even worry about it. That's why we're in this predicament. Or the person who goes, well, let me find out for myself. The person who's going to find out the truth is the person who goes, well, let me find out for myself. The person who doesn't believe. So that's why I'm always in that area where I don't believe. I don't care who you are. I'm sorry, but I will listen. Doesn't matter who you are, who you make fun of, who you're against. It's like if I have two friends, I consider them friends. I want to hang out with both of them, but they're in a fight with each other. And one of them goes, well, or both of them go, hey, hang out with me instead of him. And like, no, the other person goes, no, hang out with me instead of him. I'm like, look, I know you guys got your beefs, but I don't want it affecting my friendship with either of you. I'll listen to both of you. I'll take it or leave it. But if you're going to force me to be on your side, or you're not going to be my friend, well, do that. It's not, you're putting something on me that shouldn't be on me for. So if you don't want to be my friend because of that, that's on you. For me, don't put me in that situation, because it's not my situation to be a part of. Do you understand that? And so we see a lot of that. And once anyone says, hey, just because you're associated with this person, you better just associate with me or I'm out, then you're out. Simple as that. You may say some stuff, I'll still listen. Doesn't matter. Because I need as much information as possible to make up a better idea of what is possible, what could be, etc. And I'll take that journey. I'll make way for that path to see which path gets me to where I need to be. All right. So much is made sometimes in Chinese poetry about the how heartbroken she was that he left, but it sounds kind of like he got the way worse end of that breakup. Although the search for immortality through Zhi Wengmu is framed in that story as possible, being a product of her great wisdom and connection to heaven, which she could have shared with Mu, she also has a very concrete and famous connection to eternal life, the peaches of immortality, which allow those who taste of them to live forever. Depending on the version of the story, sometimes the peaches, which Jingming grows in her own private heavenly orchard and shares with only the worthy, are simply magical and confer other benefits on those who eat them. While immortality actually comes from an elixir only Jingming knows how to make out of them, but either way, the mortals and gods have a great reason to want to respect her and her awesome fruits regardless of her philosophical powers. Zhi Wengmu's ability to confer immortality on other people causes quite a few problems in Taoist mythology, although this is not strictly her fault. Rather, it's the fault of all these immortality seekers who keep coming to her house, raising a ruckus, and then somehow being surprised when she tells them that they're not worthy. Most seekers of the magical fruit are turned away, with Jingming ruling them unfit to see it, let alone eat it. But of course, the greatest of shenanigans are always perpetrated by other gods. Peaches are no exception, much to Zhi Wengmu's presumably eternal annoyance. Of course, she holds bouquets for the gods to come and feast on the peaches, thus remaining young and vital, but some gods just aren't satisfied with her largesse. In one myth, the hero Hu Yi, an archer without compare who had already saved the world from overheating thanks to shooting down the extra solar birds that were cluttering at the place, climbed the nigh unclimbable Mount Kunlun to reach Jingming. Mount Kunlun sounds a lot like that tower, the Dark Tower, the Mount Meru, and Magnetic North Pole. Interesting, the correlations. You may not see it, but I see it. To reach Zhi Wengmu and beg her for some immortality for himself and his wife, since he had been so heroically impressive and he managed the mythically almost impossible feat of getting to her in the first place. Ooh. Zhi Wengmu agreed and granted him 2 doses of immortality, one for each of them. Unfortunately, this all went tragically wrong when Hao Yi got home. Although how exactly depends on the teller of the story. In some, he hides both doses but doesn't tell his wife what they were, which leads to her discovering them and curiously consuming them, while in others, she knows what they are and eats both to make sure she has enough immortality for herself. And in still others, she overhears him planning to withhold her dose from her and takes the initiative to beat him to it first. In any case, the wife, Shang Yi, eats both doses of immortality and becomes super mega over immortal, which causes gravity to no longer affect her so that she goes floating off to the moon. Unable to stay on the ground while she and her husband sob and reach for each other, and everything is generally tragic. In some versions of story how he dies shortly thereafter of grief, while in others he returns shamefacedly to Ziwing Mu. She allows him to become the sun god so he can pursue his wife, who is now the moon goddess, presumably rolling her eyes all the while. Oh, isn't that a fun story? So they are constantly going around. It's more of a story of flat Earth. I'm sorry, because it's not going to be like that in the globe Earth. And the moon, with its different phases, is Chang'e blinking, or rolling her eyes. I'm sorry, not blinking. Wow, just things that just seem to connect. The other and most famous altercation involving Ziwing Mu and her fruits is with the ever-exasperating Monkey King Sun Wukong, which a lot of people heard that name before, whose shenanigans are thoroughly detailed in the ZUG, better known to us as the Journey to the West. Once he had been allowed into heaven, the gods had to do something with him, so he was appointed Guardian of the Peaches, a post that they hoped would keep him out of the way of everyone and unable to do much harm. You know what also kind of jumps out at me is that the peaches of immortality and the guardian of the peaches, it seems like very similar to the apple of knowledge, you know, in the Christian story of Adam and Eve, right? Immortality, Garden of Eden, knowledge, wisdom, whatever it is, and the guardian. Maybe it's a guardian, but the protagonist, the serpent. Anyways, it's not. It's a stretch. I agree with that, but it's interesting. It does jump out at me that way. A post that they hoped would keep him out of the way of everyone and unable to do much harm. Unfortunately for Ziwing Mu, he turned out to be smarter than she had anticipated, and realized what the peaches he was guarding actually did. He immediately gorged himself on one, and then he was about to be caught. As she arrived to gather peaches for the annual feast of the gods, he hid inside one of the peaches to avoid her. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Needless to say, she was not amused once he was discovered, and he was fired from his post pretty immediately. While there are about 1,000 other stories of dudes annoying Ziwing Mu with requests for things and then proving unworthy of them when she actually pays attention to them, her most important role doesn't usually have a lot to do with them. Rather, she is considered especially related to women, since as the Queen of Heavenly Lady, she is the most transcendent of women herself, and it embodies the Taoist female principle of yin. Scriptures claim that she is the goddess of women especially, and that all women who correctly find themselves on the path of Tao, or just even giving it a good try, are in her care. And in fact, some scholars have made studying Ziwing Mu's link to him, and specifically their lifelong work. There are tons of mentions of her in poetry, prose, and manuals of behavior of women throughout Chinese history. I know what that reminds me of, like especially when she's mentioned being like the tiger, associated with tigers and stuff like that. You know, the tiger lady. You know how strict Chinese women are. That comes to me that way too. And in contrast to later Confucian ideals of women as quiet and submissive to men, she comes from origins in which she was savage, powerful, and very clearly the boss of any dude foolish enough to bother her. It's no wonder that she appeals to worshippers of Shintoism, Taoism, and Buddhism alike, or that she's such an enduring character in so many tales. So if you journey in the West and you choose to seek enlightenment and immortality, be careful who you ask it from. Ziwing Mu will listen, but she won't put up with even an ounce of shenanigans, and many who come before her unworthy end up returning to their lives much more unhappy than if they had never come at all. That's the interesting take on that. I mean, you do have to know what you're getting yourself into. I don't know. I mean, this is just interesting as all heck, in my opinion. And let's see. Did YouTube mess with my feed? No, it's good. Just no one's saying anything or watching. Yeah, it's typical. Alright, so hi Nick Zeus from DLive. Alright, so that's kind of a not so brief dive into that. The interrelations with Sophia, the divine feminine, the Holy Spirit, Sophia, Mother Ayahuasca, and man, all of that, it's hard to ignore. I mean, a lot of people, you guys aren't there yet. You guys aren't looking for it yet. But when you guys are looking for it, oh my goodness, it is unmistakable. And here's the thing. All these civilizations, all these mythologies, all of these stories and experiences and actual experiences with ayahuasca and all of it, it's there. Different times, different locations, different civilizations, all have this recurring theme. Not just the theme, but recurring entity. Deity, God, being, non-being, whatever it is. It's hard to ignore. It's difficult to ignore. Yet, the powers that be want you to ignore it. Both sides. The very religious dogma side and the very occultic, inverted, paganistic, satanic, Luciferian, whatever you want to call it side. They want you to ignore this whole part of it. And paganism in its origins, in my opinion, and the more that I look into it, is appreciation for nature and the forces of nature, and that there is a energy, a metaphysical energy that can be presented and used if you wish to, but to misuse it also has bad end results, just like this story of the Queen of the West. And it's been clearly taken, inverted, and perverted, where one side sees paganism as evil and the other side is seeing paganism as a way to corrupt that natural essence of nature into being something and obtaining something that's unobtainable in that way, in the concept that they have it framed. And it's weird, but then I always want to go deeper into it. And maybe that's why thinking isn't sometimes the best thing in these concepts that aren't formed logically. At least we can't get to it logically. It's just imagination and dream things that you would probably tell in dreams and under influence of something. It's just you know, a thought of, if we didn't have any animals that flew, there weren't any birds or flying squirrels or anything like bats or anything like that, would we ever come up with a concept of flying as humans? because it's not there. We don't see it. It's not a natural observation. And certain things we can't know. It's like that. Remember that question: chicken and the egg, or chicken or the egg, which came first? It's hard to fathom something like that, because we try to think logically and rationally, but when we come to a situation where logic and rationality can't apply because we can't understand it we can't even imagine it, we can't even picture it, because we can't associate it with anything. So if we're not able to observe it within nature, how can we conceive of it? Do you understand where I'm getting at? And if we think about the person who invented the vacuum, or thought of a vacuum in space and things like that, is how did they come up with it? Did they just wake up? Is it like Doc Brown in Back to the Future? He's just sitting on the toilet and just figured it out. Man, that's... Oh, man, what is that? Oh, that's bubble. Anyways, that's my whole thoughts on this. We wouldn't know either way. Here's the thing: if you're so adamant about not believing, like an atheist, or you're so adamant about believing, like a dogmatic religious someone who refuses to look into their own dogma, or the people who are at the top of what they are preaching or talking about, is you're not going to find the truth. You're not going to find the things as being bad and get out of it. You're going to just double down and go, I don't need to. I believe it. Therefore it is. And can that contribute to some energy transfer to negatively give power and manifestation to something that we can't perceive, and have that reflected back onto the reality, the material world that we experience on Earth? I think it does. And look, the system that's been in place seems to have been around for centuries. I know some people say, "Oh, it's actually shorter than that," but I'd say it has to be quite a while, I would think. But say it was less than 2,000 years. Say it was just say 100, 200, 300 years. It hasn't gotten better. No one's dismantled the system that exists to make things better. Everything just gets worse and worse and worse. And the ones who are making it worse are the same ones who have been in charge, same types of people who have been in charge, same organizations that are secret or public, and everything's always been pretty non-transparent. I don't know what the term for the non-transparency is. So what gives? I mean, you've got the entire Hegelian dialectic. If you look into that, the ones who are causing the problems come up with the solutions to fix it, even though they don't fix it. They're left in charge, because what are you gonna do? Like for me, it would be like, okay, you've been in charge for however many years, and you keep failing. You should not be in charge. The group, the entity, the organizations, the corporations, the governments, the banks, whatever it is, you're in charge of it. You guys keep failing. You guys keep saying, oh, we've got to figure it out. It won't happen again. And it happens again. And you're still in charge. What are like? Is everyone else just like guys? I mean, look, I don't want to call anyone stupid or idiots or whatever. It's like I'd say more hypnotized, brainwashed, indoctrinated, whatever it is. Just can you not see that happening? D-Marble, and that was going to be my third video that I wanted to make, but of course each of these videos is taking about an hour and a half, so that's not going to happen. But he talks about catfishing, a YouTube video. Check it out, and it's very similar to what NASA does. Like someone you meet on, so say you meet someone on the internet, you don't know who this person is. They could post a fake video, or a fake bio, whatever, however you meet, and you start getting close to them. You might fall in love. You never met them, and it comes down to that time where, all right, when you finally want to go, you finally go, hey, you know, it's been however many years, and we talk to each other every day, whether it's through commenting or texting or emails, and well, let's meet. I mean, obviously we communicate a lot. Well, we just actually meet, and then so okay, let's meet. And so the person goes, hey, fly here and meet me here, and you know, we'll hang out. I always wanted to visit this place, so you book your ticket and you fly, and you booked a hotel, and you're waiting at this restaurant because that's where you're gonna meet. Yeah, you still have, yeah. I mean, you could go by one picture or a few, but you end up getting like a text message or email saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, this happened," or "So and so, a close family member died," and whatnot, and you know, we're gonna have to try this out another time. I'm sorry. And so it keeps continuing. You're like, okay, you know, that's fine. I'll just check this out, this town out, and all this other stuff. So a few months go by, and you're planning something else, and the other person goes, "I'm not ready yet." So maybe a year goes by. So you've known this individual for years. I'm sorry, just trying to get this focused. And they keep catfishing. They're like, yeah, let's meet up again, all this other stuff, and again, and this time, like, your friends and family are like, dude or gal, it's like, this person's leading you on. It's probably not even who you think it is, and you're in denial, and you're just like, no, this time it's really gonna happen. It's really gonna happen. That's what NASA's doing. They're catfishing. They're like, "Oh yeah, we'll do this. Yeah, that's exactly what we'll do. Let's do. Come along. Let's do it." And all of a sudden, it's not done. It's like, "Hey, I thought you were gonna do this. Oh, things came up. You know, it's rocket science. It's not like anything else." And then you keep going, and then eventually, if you're like some of us, you realize, "Oh my gosh, I fell for it, and I kept falling for it. Now I just gotta warn others about it." You know, when you, I remember, actually, it might have been my first first big relationship. I'm not gonna say her name. I don't know how it happened, whether it was on a voice recording of hers, or maybe this person found my phone number or email or something, but the ex-boyfriend warned me about the person I was seeing or dating and having a relationship with, and I was like, maybe this person's saying it because he's now the ex-boyfriend and jealous or something like that. You don't know. But then that entire relationship happened, and I'm like, oh, this, not just once but twice. It's like, whoa, that guy had a point. And I was warned, but again, how are you going to put your trust in someone? But you will know afterwards that, hey, I wonder who that fellow was, right? It's like, hey, thank you for warning me, even though I didn't take your warning. I get it. But I think the communication could have been better. It's like, hey, If you see signs of this, or maybe you might want to ask this, and if you get this as a response, that's your first indication. And I think that's what's getting better. Our people out there are giving warnings and indicators of, hey, you might want to watch out for this. And if they do this, this is probably what you're going to experience. And if that's your experience, then you might want to get out of that relationship. That wasn't the deep marble. That's my part. And so that's kind of what a lot of content creators that are trying to tell you that the official narrative is not adding up, and they're trying to let you know how it's not adding up, or how it's not adding up. And time and time again, it's the same thing that happens. It's the same reaction. It's getting pretty predictable now. And I think a lot of people are realizing the predictability of everything. And then what we keep saying at the end is, they're trying to divide us. Don't be divided. Don't pick a side to the opposition. Find ways to connect with each other and stay connected, to fight against the division, to keep the division as a non-thing. Connect those that are divided, and then you're on a better path. We're all on a better path together. Sorry. And don't just take another person's word for it, especially if they're a gatekeeper or an authority figure or a elite figure. Do your own research, make your decisions for yourself. Just look into it, and it's not hard. It's difficult now to look into things. You know why? They don't want you to have time to look into things, and you're going to have to give up certain things. Forget those days where you can binge watch 4 hours a night of something, or to watch 2 or 3 basketball games in a row, or football games, baseball games, and go to bed and start your work the next day. Repeat. You're going to have to give up the illusion that they've created, the illusion of being involved with the workings of just society. It's like the water, when you're taking a work break, the water break, where you're just, goodness, I can't even remember that term. But yeah, you take a break and you're at the water fountain, you're drinking and you're talking, just doing all that stuff. Talking about what's like popular, what's on the news, what's the big headlines, and having a little say in it and going on your way, having all that small talk. While it's fun and nice to want to talk about certain things that are popular, like I would want to talk about, like, people who watch Walking Dead, what could be coming up with the season finale, and maybe even the whole SJW issue that's kind of getting out there. But then also the hypocrisy of those who are against the SJW stuff. It's like it all started off pretty tight on one end about white males leading, and there's a lot more of them in the beginning, and now there's less of them and a lot of minorities. So it was kind of the reverse. And then if you look at Hollywood itself, it's like, oh, so many minorities and women, and the white women are the central figures, even though they're supposedly want diversity. And then white males are the villains, except when the minorities and women were complaining about it before, how it's always a white hero, especially in non-white whatever stories, it's like, hey, we complain. You guys didn't care. You're just like, yeah, go find your own Hollywood. Well, we don't want a Hollywood now. Hollywood's all infested with, you know what it's infested with. So there's the hypocrisy in that, and people won't see that side because they want to pick that one side over the other. Just like the SJWs won't even consider the other side to that situation. And they won't even look into themselves. Like, we're talking Walking Dead, right? Maggie, the character who plays Maggie. You know why you're not seeing her at all in season 9? Well, she wanted the same salary as Andrew Lincoln and Norman Reedus. I wish I could remember the actress's name, but I have to go by Maggie. So that's why you don't see her. And think about, hey, of all the SJW stuff that's written and being pushed on The Walking Dead, well, they don't have the quality of being paid the same as far as the lead actors and actresses. It's just pretty hypocritic. Hypocritic. Hypocritic? Oh man, it's getting late. That's what I get for talking for about 3 hours by myself to people who don't watch, to people who eventually do watch. Yeah, there's a lot of different things I could talk about. That's popular, that's big, that's has a lot of viewership. I mean, I've got certain things that are just get a lot of views, but those aren't really the things I want to talk about. It's unimportant. Even the things that you see have a lot of views out there. Nothing worth getting anything out of. Not really. So I would rather talk about important things, even if it's not going to get a lot of attention, even though I don't really enjoy talking about it sometimes, but someone has to talk about it. And the reception I get is pretty bad, right? I don't get much reception, but some of the reception I get is very negative, non-supportive, and that's fine. But the message, the information, the knowledge, the thoughts, the stories, the connections, the coincidences, all of that needs to be stated by someone, so someone else something jumps out at someone else that does create content and give out their knowledge and information and their thought processes and all that stuff. It continues and it grows, and hopefully we can get it to that point. We're not transferring our energy away for nothing and for negative gain, or for short-term gain and long-term non-gain. Same thing with our freedoms that we have here that are manifest in the material world. We don't want to give away our freedoms for false security, for lies. We need to stop. And it's hard. It's not easy. I don't even have the answers for it, but I do know I want to go on the path to find the answer and to apply it, and therefore not have to stay within the system. But if it was that easy, it would have been done before. So we'll figure it out. One of us will figure it out. Many of us will figure it out. Who knows? That the end point is there. The possibility is there. We just have to find a way to get to it. And how are we going to get to it? We've got ideas of how to get to it. We've formulated ways to get to it, but if it's a numbers game, getting the numbers to get to it, it's not working. It's not going to be a numbers game. But throughout history, it's never been a numbers game. That's why they call it underdogs. Anytime you're trying to go and replace the leading paradigm, the ruling system, whatever it is, it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to not go as you thought it would, and in the end it seems and it appears that that side, the current side, always figures out a way to come back. Hi DX country, thank you for the lemon. Awesome. Let me take a look at your stuff. That's what I like about DLive, is looking at your things. A lot of gaming. Apex Legends. I heard good things about Apex Legends. My brother wants to get me into Apex Legends with a friend of his who's big into Apex Legends. Oh, you're also definitely a PC enthusiast. RTX 2060. How is that card, by the way? Ryzen 5 2600X CPU, 4 gigabytes DDR RAM, Sigma-Tech Venom X650 80 plus gaming computer case. I guess that must have been a combo. Pretty good stuff. Definitely not overdoing it, although with the liquid cooler I don't think you need to, unless it's just one of those just the CPU ones, not the entire custom. But good stuff. I love gaming. Heck, I would talk about gaming too, but more important topics to discuss. I guess that's it. I really don't want to linger. If you want, you can always I will try to, you should watch and listen to the Nathan Oakley Flat Earth debate. That's good listening to. But I try to make it if I can, but this week has been a little bit tough. So I'll try to get on tomorrow, but I doubt it. Same thing with Friday, because hunting season started for spring turkey. And I know people are like, what? You're a hunter? You're a meat eater? I'm actually a vegetarian. But my wife calls us huntitarians. We're basically vegetarians. But we only eat the meat that we hunt or fish for ourselves, and mostly that's just me so far. And I apologize for the fish for having to kill it, but be thankful for it for providing us with sustenance, transfer of energy. And I do know that at the end I will be making that transfer of energy back to nature, and that's the way that nature goes. Take, you give. So there's that. There may be a time where I become full vegan, but again, it's still transfer of energy from a plant source. You're gonna have to take away from some kingdom or whatever, and take that energy, and you're going to eventually give back. It's just how you go about doing it, with respect or not respect, with thankfulness or the opposite of thankfulness, where it's just taking without giving, receiving without understanding the sacrifice and all of that stuff. So that's another topic in itself, which would be fun to talk about. Okay, so thank you for joining me, and I will see y'all a little later. Thank you.